I'm Lenora McKella, your registered dietitian nutritionist, here to help guide you about how to control your blood sugars during pregnancy. Now, you may have just gotten the results of your glucose tolerance test, which is what we use to diagnose gestational diabetes. You might have a history of gestational diabetes with earlier pregnancies, or have pre-existing type 1 or type 2 diabetes before getting pregnant. In any case, it is very important to monitor and control your blood sugar during pregnancy to prevent any negative health outcomes to you or your baby, and also to ensure a safe labor and delivery.
The purpose of this webinar is to help you make changes to your eating and drinking patterns that are going to support blood sugar control and a healthy pregnancy. You will need the following to succeed: log sheets from MPG included in the Gestational Diabetes or GDM packet of stapled papers, a glucometer with test strips and lancets, the nutrition meal planning handout and webinar worksheet from MPG to take notes. You'll also want to invest in measuring cups, specifically a 1/2 cup and 1 cup dry measure. If you don't have any measuring cups at home, you might have the small side dish container from KFC restaurant to use as a 1/2 cup measure until you can get a measuring cup set with handles for easier use. Please take some time to read through the GDM packet for an overview of gestational diabetes. This is a type of diabetes specifically during pregnancy. Also, be sure to read and understand the log sheet instructions before starting to check your blood sugars. It is very important to start checking your blood sugars as soon as possible and write them down in your log sheets, along with the foods and drinks that you intake throughout the day. You are expected to check your blood sugar first thing in the morning before you have anything to eat, and then 2 hours after every meal. You'll be monitoring your blood sugars until you give birth, 4 times daily or as instructed by your OB doctor. In this nutrition webinar, we'll dive into the concepts of consistent carbohydrate and protein intake for blood glucose control that will help you plan your meals and snacks. We won't have enough time to cover all nutrition recommendations for pregnancy, but we'll focus on protein and protein pairing to support increased needs during pregnancy and glucose control, respectively.
The overall goal of your eating pattern is to have consistent carbohydrate and protein intake throughout the day and every day. We'll break this down into 4 key points to help you choose your foods and also plan your grocery list.
The first place to consider making changes is when you eat. Eating on a consistent schedule will help keep your blood sugars within a safe range. Prevent long gaps between meals, as well as large intakes of food in one sitting. Instead, try to have a consistent pattern of times to eat to prevent both high and low blood sugars. Now think about your typical day. I recommend that you start with breakfast within 1 to 2 hours of waking up to stabilize your blood sugar after fasting overnight. Have breakfast every morning, even if your morning blood sugar is elevated. Don't worry, we'll go over foods to eat throughout the rest of this webinar. And from the time that you've had breakfast, continue to have small frequent intakes every 3 hours or so. This will prevent extreme hunger and help regulate your appetite.
An example of eating every 3 hours or so is shown on your log sheets under all the meals and snacks. If you don't follow a routine schedule, then consider this your new daily routine. If you do follow a set schedule, then use the idea of eating every 3 hours or so that you're not going longer than 3 or 4 hours without eating. You don't necessarily have to eat too much to be considered a meal. We'll go over what constitutes a carbohydrate and a protein to make up a meal or a complete snack. Be sure to read through your log sheet instructions carefully. Notice that there's no time set for a protein-based bedtime snack. Don't be discouraged if you feel like you're gonna have this snack late. Have a protein-based bedtime snack anyway. Just be sure not to have any fruit or sweet treat.
Your carbohydrate intake directly affects your blood sugar. meaning that the type of carbohydrate, the amount, and the frequency all matter. Carbohydrate is an essential nutrient that your body needs, but if you consume too much at any one time, then you will end up with high blood sugar. Likewise, if you try to cut carbohydrates out completely, then it might result in dangerously low blood sugars, or result with uncontrollable hunger later in the day, even the following day. So the goal is to eat a consistent amount of carbohydrates throughout the day and to choose fiber-rich foods to support glycemic control. Carbohydrates can be found in almost every food group. Main sources are found in grains, starchy vegetables, fruits, and sugar. Avoid or limit refined sugar from all sugary drinks. Even drinks sweetened with honey can raise your blood sugar substantially. Be mindful of sweet sauces like sweet and sour, honey mustard, barbecue, and teriyaki sauces that can add carbohydrates to a meal. Something like orange chicken or honey walnut shrimp will contain additional carbohydrates from the flour breading and the concentrated sauce that's smothered or soaked in that breading. Choose simpler condiments like regular mustard or balsamic vinegar, or use minimal amounts to dip food that is not breaded. Snacks and desserts like chips, cookies, pastries, pies, and ice cream are probably already on your radar. It is important not to have these at night especially, as they do result in high blood sugars the following morning. If ever you feel like you must have a treat, best to have it as a snack between your meals instead of with your starch during meals. That way, you're still spreading out your carbohydrate intake. We'll talk about adding protein to that snack a little later. Fruits do provide carbohydrates. Eating them also gives your body fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytochemicals, and water. All good stuff. Drinking fruit juice, however, even if there's no sugar added, will omit the fiber and will likely raise your blood sugar much like other sugary drinks. I recommend that you eat the fruit rather than drink juice. All fruits are wonderful during pregnancy, but portions will look a little different. For example, the amount of carbohydrate in half a store-bought medium banana will be similar to 1 cup of diced melon, a half cup of berries, or a small apple or orange. This is the amount you should measure if you're adding fruit to a meal with starch. However, if you choose to eat your fruit between meals, then you can likely have the whole banana or a medium-sized apple or orange as your carbohydrate. Please note not to eat fruits at night, just like desserts. Eating fruits at night will likely raise your blood sugar the next morning. Starch is the most filling of carbohydrate sources and includes all grains like rice, bread, oats, cereals, noodles, pastas, crackers, and anything made of wheat flour, as well as starchy vegetables like potato, corn, peas, beans, and local starches such as breadfruit, taro, yams, tapioca, and cooking banana. As you're thinking of changes to make to control your blood sugar, consider including high-fiber starches to your shopping list, which are whole grains and starchy vegetables. Fiber from these foods will help to control your blood sugar response to carbohydrates, so let's take a look at which ones you feel comfortable eating. Write down the ones you'd like to include in your grocery list on your worksheet. Now, typical whole grains include foods like brown rice, whole wheat bread, oatmeal, oat bars like Nature Valley Crunchy Bars or Belvita biscuits, quinoa breakfast cereals, corn tortillas, whole wheat pasta, and whole grain crackers. Note that any whole grain product should have a whole grain listed as the first ingredient, which would be something such as whole wheat flour, whole grain corn, oats, or brown rice flour. That means that the biggest ingredient does contain fiber. Now, if the product label says multigrain or made with whole grains, but the first ingredient is enriched wheat flour, then that means that the outer layers of that grain have been removed. The whole grains that the front label claims may be listed further down in the ingredient list, but the first and biggest ingredient should be a whole grain if you're buying the product for fiber benefits. The starchy vegetables that I mentioned earlier are also good sources of fiber, which include sweet potato, particularly when eating the skin, corn, peas, breadfruit, taro root, yams, tapioca root, but not boba drink tapioca, cooking banana, and cooked beans, like black beans, mungo beans, and lentils.
So, out of all of these starches that are higher in fiber, which ones do you prefer to eat? Be sure to write them down in your worksheet and grocery lists. Also, be mindful that all of these starches are going to give carbohydrates, so try not to combine them at meals as they will add up. Try to choose between your burger bun and fries, between your pasta and garlic bread, and between your rice, potato, and corn, so that they're not combining to be more than the portion that works for you.
Let's move on to carbohydrate portions. Here is a sample nutrition facts label. Do you look at nutrition facts labels? If so, what do you look at? Today we'll focus on two specific items. The first is a serving size. The serving size doesn't necessarily mean that's how much you're supposed to eat. Rather, it is a reference for all the numbers below. Everything else that you read on this label is only meaningful if you understand how much a serving is of the product. In this example, a serving is 1.5 cups. But if you ate everything in the container, then you need to multiply all these numbers by the number of servings per container, which in this case is 4. The second thing that we'll focus on is the total carbohydrate amount. Someone trying to watch their blood sugar might only look at total sugars, but do you see that total sugars is a subcategory under total carbohydrate? Total sugars only reflect sugars added, naturally occurring fruit sugar, and natural milk sugar. However, it does not capture the carbohydrates in all the starches that we just reviewed. Here there are only 4 grams of total sugars, but there are 46 grams of total carbohydrate, a significantly higher amount. To see the bigger picture, let's refer to total carbohydrate content. So how much is a good amount? For majority of pregnant women with gestational diabetes, a good starting point is roughly 30 grams of total carbohydrates per meal. The total carbohydrate here is more than 30 grams in a 1.5 cup serving. If we're trying to keep to 30 grams per meal, then how could we make this product work? Maybe instead of measuring out 1.5 cups, perhaps you could just eat 1 cup of this product for a meal or snack. That's how you can use the nutrition facts label to help you keep to your consistent eating pattern. And vice versa, if we took a look at 100% whole wheat bread, the standard serving size is 1 slice. The average total carbohydrate amount for the 1 slice is about 15 grams of carbohydrate. But a whole sandwich is 2 slices of bread. 15 grams of carbohydrate times 2 is 30 grams. Yay! Now go look at all of your grain products and see how many servings gets you roughly 30 grams of carbohydrate. Going back to our handout, the portions listed for all the starches are roughly 30 grams of carbohydrate. Of course, some products may vary, like crackers. A serving of one brand might be 15 crackers, while a serving of another brand might be only 6 crackers. You want to verify. All the starchy vegetables are about a half cup, and an average portion of breakfast cereal is 1 cup, unless if it has raisins or is densely packed in with frosted sugar topping like frosted mini wheats. You'll want to reduce the portion or just choose a different cereal. Look back to your log sheet. There is a reminder to include a portion of carbohydrate at every meal and snack, except for your bedtime snack. I recommend to try having protein only for a bedtime snack, and we'll go over protein in just a minute.
So far, we talked about the consistency of meal times and of carbohydrate portions, emphasizing the importance of high fiber foods from whole grains, starchy vegetables, and fruits. Now, other vegetables that are not starchy are also really high in fiber. So I encourage you to include a colorful assortment of veggies in meals and snacks for the many nutrients that they provide. We have one more key point to go over, so let's get to it.
The last key point we'll go over now is protein pairing. Because you're pregnant, you are in a state of positive protein balance as your body continues to change and your baby's growing. That means that your body needs more protein than when you're not pregnant. You accomplish this by having a source of protein with every meal and snack, every 3 hours or so. For gestational diabetes, your body has a better tolerance of carbohydrate when you eat protein with it. Next on your meal planning handout is a list of quality protein sources, which are generally animal-based, plant-based, and some dairy-based. Animal-based proteins include chicken, beef, pork, fish, seafood, and eggs. If you eat these at meals, you do not need to cut down or reduce your portions. Eat your normal amount. If not, have an extra piece if you're still hungry. If you feel like having seconds, have extra protein and/or non-starchy vegetables to fill up at a meal. Plant proteins are great to have, especially if you haven't been eating them throughout your pregnancy so far. Plant proteins include nuts, nut or seed butters like peanut butter, almond butter, and sunflower butter. Legumes like beans, lentils, and peas have protein, but also remember that they are starchy with carbohydrates. Legumes have wonderful nutrients for pregnancy, such as fiber, folic acid, and non-heme iron. So I encourage you to eat them as much as possible, but try not to combine them with other starches and grains at the same meal, as that will likely be too much. Other plant proteins include soy products, tofu, hummus, tempeh, and other vegetarian meat alternatives. Last but not least, some dairy products are high-quality proteins as well. These include dairy milk, preferably 1% low-fat or non-fat, part-skim cheese, low-fat yogurt, and cottage cheese. If you're lactose intolerant or vegetarian, then calcium-fortified soy milk is also a high-quality protein. On the contrary, most other plant-based milk alternatives, like almond milk or coconut milk, do not have the same protein content. You can still drink them as a calcium source if they are indeed calcium fortified, but you then will still need to add a protein to the meal or snack for protein balance. Now you might also be wondering about yogurt regarding flavored versus plain. Plain non-flavored yogurt and Greek yogurt have protein, so if you can eat it plain, then you can have them at any time, including for bedtime snack. If you only like flavored yogurts, like Yoplait Original, the red caps, then understand that they have fruit and sugar added to them. So one container has enough carbohydrate for a snack between meals. That should be okay, as long as you don't go adding other carbohydrates like fruit, granola, or honey. Also, do not eat flavored yogurts as a bedtime snack. More than likely, it will spike your blood sugar the next morning. Then there are flavored yogurts that use non-nutritive sweeteners like sucralose, which do not have carbohydrates. Examples of these include Yoplait Light, the blue cap, and 100-calorie flavored Greek yogurts. Check and compare the total carbohydrate amounts between yogurts. You can choose what works best for you. Another idea is to use plain yogurts for a savory dish instead of trying to make it sweet. One idea of this is to use plain yogurt to substitute sour cream in dips or Mexican dishes. It has a similar flavor, texture, and color. You can mix plain yogurt or cottage cheese with salsa to make it creamy and eat your creamy salsa, whether smooth or chunky, with whole grain crackers and veggies. Now go over this protein list again and circle all the protein sources that you feel comfortable eating or drinking. Then write them on the worksheet, as those definitely need to be priorities on your grocery list. Referring back to your log sheet, there is a reminder to include protein with every meal and snack, to emphasize the importance of consistent protein intake, as well as an emphasis on a protein-based bedtime snack. Drinking as little as half a cup or up to 1 8-ounce cup of low-fat dairy milk or unflavored soy milk before bed has been shown to support normal fasting blood sugars the next morning. Otherwise, if you prefer more variety, then cheese, nuts, nut butters, and eggs also make for good protein-based bedtime snacks.
Summarizing what we've gone over so far, the overall goal of your eating pattern is consistent carbohydrate and protein intake. So that means planning your meal times every 3 hours or so throughout the day, measuring your starch and choosing just one portion, including high fiber foods from whole grains, starchy vegetables, fruits, and other vegetables, and lastly, including protein with all your meals and snacks.
Remember to bring a grocery list of all the foods we went over to help you plan your meals and snacks. Have them readily available at home or at work. Remember to write down your intake and blood sugar on the log sheets. Keep your log sheets with you and bring them to all your appointments. Now find what works for you to be consistent. That goes for your food and drink intake as well as for logging. Set alarms on your phone if you need help remembering to check your blood sugar, and if you need reminders to eat too. Your best bet is to keep your log sheet with your glucometer to write things down whenever you check your blood sugar. Or you might be better at designating one time in the day to reflect and write your daily intake. Do what works for you.
Now you're ready to take control of your blood sugar. Give things a try and remember to keep a positive mindset, focusing on the foods that are going to nourish your body and your baby. If you have any questions, write them down and we'll go over them together in our scheduled appointment.